Do you want to proceed with the roll call?
Absolutely. Alex Collazo,
Present.
Brucey Cummins. Brucey Cummins. Caleb Gunter.
I'm here.
Carrie Elenu.
Here.
Charlie Lykoff. Charlie Lykoff. Darren Heitner. Darren Heitner. Deborah Rosenbaum.
I'm here.
Gail Butler. Gail Butler. Greg Martin.
Good evening, here.
Joanne Smith. Joanne Smith. Mariana Seiler. Mariana Seiler. Mary Pelican.
I'm here.
Robert Payne.
Here.
Steffi Pascal.
Here.
Tangerine Moore.
Here.
Darren Heitner, I think I see you joined.
Here.
Okay, you do have a quorum.
All right. Do we want to proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance? Is there a flag available?
None is available, Caleb, so you could continue.
All right. Next order, approval of the minutes. Has anybody had an opportunity, or everyone had opportunity to review minutes that were emailed to us?
I actually got a chance to review it, and I moved to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Without discussion, we'll move forward with approval. Can we get a aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, I guess, is probably the most obvious. Without that, we'll move forward to the first item of the business as the department update with Carl.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, well, good evening again, and it's good to see you all virtually, that is, for another of our Parks Board meetings. I have a couple updates. I'll try to be brief here. We are in the planning stages of our summer camp program. As you know, we're still in the process of
I'm sorry, Carl. Jerry, are you able to mute Gail?
Yes,
I think the feedback is coming from there.
Yes, I'm working on it right now.
I don't.
I think we're good now.
All right, we okay to proceed? I see we're sharing Gail's screen. I don't know if that's intentional or not.
I don't, sir.
Okay. So as I was mentioning, we are in the planning stages of planning our summer camp program for this year. As you know, last year we had quite a few changes to the summer camp program due to COVID. And this year we're planning on, of course, having summer camp. We're looking to continue our COVID efforts, although, you know, we believe that, you know, as time goes on, we'll be able to have a better idea of how that will impact our summer camp programs. But we are also in the process of applying for a CDBG grant That also includes academic enrichment portions for our summer camp, because we recognize that over the course of the past year, it's been a challenge for many parents and students to stay on track academically. And so we'll be enhancing our summer camp program to be able to provide academic enrichment during summer programming that we traditionally do. And so this camp will be about 7 weeks long. We're also in conversations with Broward County School Board to add additional
Carl,
educational
I'm sorry to
hubs.
interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt, Carl, but your clarity is very difficult to hear. And I think for recording purposes, I don't know if it's coming from your background, but everybody.
FYI, just FYI, this is Gail. It is not my dog.
No, not
So-
you, Gail. I'm speaking with Carl.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think everybody else is muted, but the sound clarity is hard to hear. So I just wanted to say that.
okay. How about, are we able to hear me now? So at any rate, our summer camp program is still in the planning stages, and we'll continue to work through that. Also, as you know, this week is our spring camp program, and we are going pretty well with that. So I just wanted to make the board aware of those couple of things, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions from the board?
Leona, I just wanted to say I'm here. It's Mariana Seiler.
Duly noted.
Okay. All right, next order of business is the Parks Bond up from Joe Webb. And looking forward to seeing or hearing.
Phil, would you like to do any introduction, or would you like me to start?
So yeah, let me just real quickly say this is a big night for us. This is the first real group of projects that we are bringing forward to the board per the Parks Board language, that the projects come through the board for their information, and then it goes on to the commission for a public hearing. And then AECom and Joe and his group can actually start doing the work and hopefully getting some projects going and some shovels in the ground. So we're looking forward to Joe's presentation tonight. And then if you have any questions afterwards, we'd be glad to answer any of those. But we will be requesting a recommendation to move forward with the phase 1 projects, so we can bring those to the commission and for the public hearing and then begin work. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Phil. Can everyone see my screen with the presentation on it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, well, I love the technology, but I always hold my breath till the last minute here. But again, thank you for having me back. I was here once previously just talking about the program, but now we've had a pretty robust or very robust public engagement period, and hopefully report to you our summary of the engagement and our initial project prioritization. So happy people in a beautiful park. Our agenda, very simple, just a summary of the public engagement. We're going to talk about how we went about prioritizing our recommendations. Again, this doesn't mean one project's more important than other, but which to go first with. We had a strategy for that and criteria, and I'll try and explain how we got to our recommendations. And then, of course, the all-important next steps. Here we are at an important turning point. We started up in the project in fall. We've been very actively engaged. I hope everyone on this call participated in some of the virtual rooms and online engagement. But that closed in February. We've been working to compile that information to give us direction. So we are here at this point between kind of the first public engagement and really, hopefully moving forward into getting things on the ground and places to play. So The summary, very, very happy. This was, the people of Fort Lauderdale really embraced, I think, the virtual platform. I think it was very, very successful in comparison to, any efforts we've made, in person. 6,452 visits. That isn't 6,000 unique individuals, but 6,452 people effectively walked into the room. That's just an amazing number. Of those, 4,700 felt compelled to get in and give comments. 1,164 participants gave 3,500 comments. So a very robust public engagement. This effort, was COVID driven, but I would think by anyone's standards, definitely got a lot of participation. So through that and through that portal, the first effort was, do we have concurrence from the community, from the neighborhoods on their park areas on what we proposed out as a programmatic plan. Of the 90 total parks that we had in the virtual room platform, 55 are ones where was just pretty much, yep, that's it. There's 13 that, as going through each one of them, it was more of a, I wouldn't say even a correction, a clarification of small things that people pointed out that very easy to correct and to, simply, it didn't change the intent of what we were doing. There's, of course, 9 new parks that have no design, so we'll have to go on to, in later phases, a design effort and a further engagement. And there's 13 parks that, warrant further consideration and will require some type of follow-up. So what we heard in general, this picture on the right might not be exactly it, but there was a lot of excitement in the community about just the fact of that we're making the improvements. So that's the overriding theme. A lot of people were really grateful for the idea that the city is making improvements, that there will be upgrades in their neighborhood parks, in the big community parks, and a general excitement. If you look at the list, and there were some concentrated things where people were providing direct comment about specific activities, but going down the list, a lot of just basic improvements from access to dog parks and open spaces and passive areas. Not an overwhelming, if you're talking to the cross section of the community, they just generally want improvements in almost all aspects of the parks across a broad spectrum of activities. So we also, as a part of our portal, we were able to see where some of the comments came from. So this is just an example of Greenfield Park, a cute little park, but 245 people visited it, but we could actually see, if you see the diagram there, where they were, who is living nearby. Is this a comment coming from, Alaska, or is this someone who is nearby commenting on the neighborhood park? So we'll factor that in as we look at the particular improvements, but we're able to see very clearly what it is. And from those, upgrading the playground, shade, a pavilion, and just lots of comments about happy to see the improvements coming. So if you see, this is just a small neighborhood park, but a good example of how, the playground, shade, and surfacing, obviously they're very familiar with the park, probably go there frequently, are aware that that's in need of improvement, and, that's their direction to us to do. Pretty straightforward. So, the lighting was a little more straightforward for us too. So much has happened better in lighting that interesting that the public is also attuned to that type of improvement. So we also did poll the staff, and this does not supersede the public's input. That is our direction, but we also, got a lot of great input from some people that work and, are a part of the programs and maintenance of the parks. I sometimes joke I rarely hear, what we need is a new 8-inch force main, but we didn't get direct comment like that, but we got some really good insights from staff also on some of the functional aspects of each of the parks. So we'll consider that as we move forward with each one. So with all of that input, we compiled it together, we reviewed it all. You can still see on the FTL Parks projects, people can see every comment and every response that someone may have made to someone else's comment or every unique comment. So it's there, we're trying to be as transparent as possible, and that's how we compile them. Our strategy is quite simple as we look at the projects, balance the need for effective public input. Everybody wants to be in concurrence, moving ahead with the improvements that the people in the community want, but balancing that with also wanting to move the projects forward. So, if there are projects that we have full concurrence, that is a real important aspect of us wanting to move those projects forward now, at least while we continue to work on others. We have a very large team of planning and design and construction management people on our team ready to work. We're perfectly happy to continue to reach out if there's additional information that's needed. But in the meantime, our hope is that can we get started on that group of projects where there isn't the need for any further discussion, get all of these people working on getting those improvements while me and my planning team continue to work to follow up where necessary. So that's kind of the thought. We have multiple teams that can get started. Let's get people started working, making the improvements as quickly as possible while we carry forth with other phases of work. So kind of a tier or tranche approach. Our criteria, again, there were the identified signature projects. We know those are a priority and that those have to be at the top of the list. That's Holiday, Carter, and Lockhart for us. There was also Tunnel Top that is being currently done by the FDOT. So we know those are the priorities. Community consensus, as I've mentioned, is the overriding factor. We want to make sure that if we're about to make improvements, we're working on the things where everyone is in agreement on what the improvements are. We did feel it was important that they were equitably distributed across the city, that we weren't working in just concentrated areas in one part of the city versus the other. So we strove to make that as a part of it. I want to say that the original bond list was not done, entirely equitably, X number per commission district, et cetera. It was done based on need, but at least for the first phase of projects, we wanted to make sure that there was kind of an even distribution, show across the city improvements. We're continuing to work to find grants. That isn't a big influence for this phase, but that may influence our future phases. And then, of course, our technical expertise and the efficiency of design, bidding, and construction. So just in real general, our phase 1, signature projects and equitably distributed projects with clear public consensus. That's what we were looking for this phase. There are more that, we simply just can't do all in phase 1. We would do those in phase 2. Phase 3 are really those that would give us approximately 6 months to a year to go back, find out more, see where there's, potentially differences of opinion, follow up with those and put those in phase 3, and then really treating phase 4 as those new parks that we're really starting from scratch. So that was the approach. Here are, there's kind of a combination of both design intensive projects, meaning those projects with lots of improvements will take probably a wide array of technical expertise from architects to engineers to lighting specialists. There's 12 of those parks that we see that are that way, and you can see on the map how they're distributed across the city. And then a group of less intensive projects. Another thought is that, you know, every small neighborhood park improvement shouldn't need to wait until we solve, you know, every improvement that's slated for holiday parks, say, for example, that these could go on concurrently, that with our ability to have multiple teams working on, we could have a team that could do small improvements at Tarpon River concurrently while we're working on the others, so that the neighborhood parks and the small improvements that are needed are being done simultaneously and aren't waiting to the end of the program to where they get a part of the improvement. When you put them all together, it is, at least as best as we can, a distribution across the city. You know, we're trying to show progress, a lot of people are very eager for something to happen, start to see things happening. We really did try and balance the intensive ones that might occupy more design professional expertise with the less intensive. And if you do wish to visit them, we did create a website with just the phase 1 projects that I believe Phil shared with all of you, where this is the group alphabetically that we think we can move ahead with right now and be concurrent with the community and really start to make some improvements. So our next steps, you know, we will have to, with your concurrence tonight, you know, we will have to take these projects. It's not as simple as just here's the list and now we do them. We will, using our ability to use a variety of different contracting methods. Our desire is to maximize the benefit to the community as much as possible, to minimize the amount of extra expenditure on design and permitting where appropriate. It's very necessary. We're not, if we can efficiently bid these packages in ways that gets the best benefit to the city, the most of improvements within the parks, we'll be looking at ways to consolidate those together. So our future presentation on the phase 2, we'll hope to get started on these projects now, and in approximately 6 to 8 months come back with the phase 2 recommendation. This is our ideas for phase 1. So our request, our ask for this evening is that the Parks, Recreation and Beaches Advisory Board recommend to the City Commission the approval of the list and the projects that have the community consensus, and that we're move forward with design and construction. So that's kind of a short presentation of kind of an overview of what we've been up to. We certainly appreciate your patience and listening to me, but if you have any questions, I'll try and answer those if you do.
I have a question, Joe.
Yep.
Did you during the course of you coming together with figuring out where you want to distribute all of the parks and the improvements, was the barrier island ever taken into consideration? I didn't see anything on the barrier island.
Let me go back to that.
One of the things that I had brought up to Phil previously, and I thought it would be a nice enhancement, is in the middle portion of the barrier island is an area called North Beach Village. Now, I know that there are a lot of people there that would love to see a dog park with some tree, some shade trees and benches and stuff like that. But needless to say, I was just wondering if the barrier island ever came into play in terms of one of the park projects.
Well, we looked at every one of them that came in. What was the name of the park? I'm sorry, Deborah.
North Beach Village.
So this is Phil. Deborah, I think what you're asking is you're looking for us to purchase property to develop a dog park or do something on North Beach Village area. What we're bringing tonight is the approved bond list of projects that was actually in the bond that went to the voters in 2019 and moving forward with those. So any additional properties that we either acquire or redevelopment, those will be in future phases. But at this point, we're dealing with projects that were already in the master plan in 2016, and then we're on the list in 2019 when the vote was approved. If that clarifies anything.
I thought that there were options to choose areas to purchase land for new parks or to develop parks.
Yeah, and we're still doing that, Deborah. So and we're still looking for property. So as we've talked before, if you have an idea on something down there that you think we should look at to try to purchase, please send that to me or give me a call, and we'll, Colliers is doing our real estate side of things on the purchasing side of things, but we'll be glad to chase down in whatever we can to try to buy some more property.
Great, thanks, Phil.
I see your hands up.
I think Gail's trying to say something.
I see Carrie.
I see
Hand up.
there's a hand up. So we'll go with hands initially.
Caleb, are you telling me to speak or do you want me to wait?
That was the hand I saw that was up on my screen.
Yeah, that was my hand.
And I see, it looks like Gail's trying to speak, but I think she's muted or something's wrong with the vote. We'll go with hands if that's all right. So.
Okay, hi, this is Gail. I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but I think I was muted by somebody else. Anyway, I was just saying the picture you have up on the screen right now is a wonderful little park on the barrier island where there's parking. It's right across from the sea tower. There's another one right at the end of Oakland Park Boulevard. I don't know if there's any room for any more of those, but that's a beautiful area of the beach that isn't used all that much, mainly because it's all houses. But I don't know if there could be a dog park at the one you're showing right now across from the sea tower. I don't know, can everybody see that one with the chairs?
Yep.
Yeah.
See it.
Okay, my point is I don't know how much land that is, but maybe there could be a small dog park there or something. I don't know. Just an idea. I'm just throwing that out. I'm done.
Right. Carrie, you had
Dog parks.
You had a question, Carrie?
Yeah, thank you, Caleb. Do you go by Joseph or Joe? What do you prefer?
Oh, just Joe.
Joe? Okay. Joe, so thank you for coming forward with this. This is great. So I have one comment I want to make to you, and I'm not really sure what to do about it, but it's definitely something I want you to kind of just try to factor in as you go forward. And then I have two related questions. So the one comment I want to make is I was a bit concerned about the survey because it didn't ask any, I don't know if the right word is demographic, but I'm going to use the word demographic information. I understand what you're saying about it could tell where you were logging in from, and that was great. But please bear in mind that's not perfect. Like when I logged in, because I could connect through my work's virtual Ethernet, I don't even know, virtual private network or whatever, it literally thought I was in Pennsylvania. Like it pre-populated the zip code on the contact information. So, but it is what it is. You do the best you can. But the issue I'm raising is it did not ask how often do you go to this park that you're providing comment on? What types of reasons do you go to this park? How many people are in your family? And I felt like that was crucial because it used IP address to say like, okay, someone from this IP address has already logged in and left a comment. And so a household of 5, 6, 7 people might only get the ability to leave one comment. And that caused me concern, because you could take a situation in the combination of those things where there was no feedback about how often you use the park or how many people are in your household or anything like that. So basically you could end up in a situation where, we had this issue, I felt like, where there were a lot of people who want a skate park, and there are a lot of people who want a lot of pickleball courts in a single area. And they both kind of targeted Holiday Park because they felt like that is a big park, and so let's do it there. But with the way the feedback was taken, you could have one person who never goes to Holiday Park, but they just want a skate park, so they're saying, let's do it in Holiday Park. And that one person's feedback saying, we want a skate park in Holiday Park, is given the same weight as someone who lives within walking distance of Holiday Park, goes there, and has 5 or 6 people in their family, all of whom use Holiday Park for all sorts of different reasons. And the comments from those are going to be weighted the same, because there was nothing asking like, how do you use the park? How often do you use the park? So similarly, people who only use, again, Holiday Park because they're in like a sports league there. So they have no interest in it have any like passive uses. They don't care about a playground, a splash pad, a botanical garden, none of that. It's just a commuter sports venue to them. And if you'd asked, how often do you use this park? They'd say once a week for Little League. That's it. And I felt like there should have been a greater emphasis on, okay, yeah, but who also uses this park because they walk to it? And who uses park because they play tennis there, and they take their kids to the playground, and they use the sports field? And so I don't think there's anything to be done about that at this point in time, unless there are other ways that you're still soliciting feedback from, like, example, actual neighborhood civic associations directly, or things like that. But I think you really need to take that into consideration. And that leads into the first of my 2 questions. And the first question being, flowing right into that, there's clearly a desire for a skate park and for a lot of pickleball courts in the same area. I think the reason they all need to be in the same area is so people don't have to drive around looking for a pickleball court. Like, there's 10 at this park and 10 at that park, and maybe they're all full. I think, something like a pickleball cam, so you could see if the courts were full, could maybe address that. But so the first question is, those were a lot of the requests for that were targeted at Holiday Park. Though, in my opinion, if you could find a place that's not green space, like, you don't need green space for a skate park, and you don't need green space for pickleball courts, and those are things people will drive to. Like, if we could find a central location and put a skate park there, everyone who wants to go to a skate park will drive to it, just as they would drive to Holiday Park or drive to wherever you put it. And so my first question is, in looking at the skate park and the pickleball court request, are we just assuming, well, everyone said Holiday Park, so let's see if we can stick them there? Or is there some sort of thought about, like, look, these could really go anywhere in the city where everyone can get to them, and let's try to find a non-green space area to do those things? That's question 1. And then question 2 is, what are we voting on tonight? Like, you say that like the signature project, especially in terms of the signature project and Holiday Park. Like, I understand what you're saying, like the smaller project where there's concurrence, everyone's saying, yeah, the things you proposed are good. But Holiday Park, the graphic that was what we all saw in the virtual room and what we're seeing now, I don't think there's concurrence on that graphic. Now, I understand you got to start somewhere, right? Like, you got a lot of feedback, and so now you need to go design. But like the way that current graphic is, in terms like the whole southwestern quadrant that is on field parking but will become park space, like, there's nothing proposed there. And the splash pad is really far from the playground, and all of these things, whereas Holiday Park kind of needs like a large redesign. And so specifically, as we vote tonight, are we saying, like, yes, go forward with this, but like for something like Holiday Park, you'll come back to us with a more clear rendering of, like, okay, based on what everyone said, this is where we think we would lay everything out? So those were my 2 questions.
So I can start with that, and Phil, you can join in here if you want, but the answer, I guess, is yes and yes. If it were not a signature project, Holiday obviously wouldn't make it in the group. We had an inundation of people that add particularly pickleball and a skate park. And I think it's exactly as you described. It's a known central location. So, you know, they picked Holiday Park. Holiday will have to go, we will have to do more work in developing a refined master plan that looks at all of the balanced desires for that park. Concurrently, we have been talking about other locations that could be potentially acquired or are available in a central location that are, just as you said, already gray, not green space. If we put everything that everyone wanted in Holiday Park, I'd have to go to 2 stories. You know, it's just, was the go-to one for everyone's comments, and will probably take the most amount of work of every project listed here. No question about it. And I think there is our full intent that development towards a more comprehensive master plan is part of the desire for Holiday. Honestly, there was so much input on Holiday alone. It was almost half of the comments. Everybody in the city thinks of Holiday as the place for everything. You know, at a point, we would have no blades of grass left. So I do think it's going to have to go through an iterative design process. And literally, if it wasn't that it was a, you know, identified signature project, you know, it probably would be one we would just put into the planning and look for it in phase 3. But we will move forward. I do think Phil has talked to us. We've worked with Collier on the identification potential of areas, just as you said, that might be just as good, but, you know, might not currently be in the park system. So all the issues you brought up about Holiday are very pointed. There's also, you know, George English had a lot of similar kind of, I think because it's highly recognized, it's a place where a lot of people know where it is, and it's going to take more work. There isn't a simple answer to either of them. I want to go back to question 1 you asked about, you know, there being more questions on there. We knew we were limited in the number of questions we could ask. We did actually ask a lot of those questions you just said in the master plan. Part of our effort today was to confirm the improvements from the master plan, but there was demographics, distance from a number of people in your family that was all part of, you know, the 2016 evaluation of appropriate needs. So that wasn't duplicated in this effort in a virtual room, but we do recognize that in the master planning phase that, you know, it's important to know that if there's frequency of use, I believe was a question asked at that time. So does that address your questions, or
it does?
It's not fully satisfying, but
no,
there's no question Holiday is going to have to go through some iterations. There's going to be others.
That addressed all my questions. I guess my parting comment would be, in terms of skate park, think rooftops, which I say all the time, and no one in it, everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, rooftops.
I've seen those. We're designing others in different locations, both inside and out. It's a pretty flexible thing to put in. I've also seen different opportunities for pickleball. So we want to explore all the options. We've been sharing some with Phil, and you know, it's just simply finding the right solution.
Greg, and
but thank you. Your point on, yeah. We could talk about Holiday and to the exclusion of every other park in the city.
Well, thank you so much.
Joe, can I ask the question? I think it was asked at the last time, but and once again, I want to read it. Thank you very much. Great feedback. I enjoyed reading a lot of the comments on the website, but I know we started this a long time ago. Was there any comments? I guess, did any of the parks take a major turn in how we were original, or how you were originally looking at the park? and how you feel we should look at the park today going forward. And it's a wide open deal for Holiday Park, but I think that's one of those things where, we're looking at what I believe were the original plans that were submitted. Did anything have comments that said, hey, we need to rethink this park? The feedback was different than what we had originally assumed or thought.
How do I answer that? There's 13 that I think are clearly need further work. It's always hard in public involvement. There was an extensive amount of public involvement as a part of the master plan. There was focus groups and statistically valid surveys and a lot of information that was gathered then. Then we get, I wouldn't say diametrically opposed, what you're proposing is wrong and what we want is something entirely different. There's different emphasis. But is the last person speaking today supersede what we heard in 2015, 2016, and all the other people? So our challenge is more of not left or right or top, go forward or turn right. It's more, is the emphasis right? Does something else need to be added? So I didn't feel there was conflict, and I don't want to belabor Holiday, but here, like Holiday, there was more. We heard more things. Now, if I have to choose between what I heard, here in 2021, does that supersede what a lot of people went and visited and looked at the park? And what we heard is more green space, more trees, more open space. Better walking paths, a new playground. How do I weigh, the demand for something new versus what is, it's not like it was a good idea and a bad idea. It's two good ideas. And then trying to determine which is the priority, how do they work together? How can we maximize the benefit and really hear the broadest spectrum of people? So I didn't hear, oh my God, you've got it wrong. I think there's just been way too much public input for us to be 100% off base, but I think the emphasis of priority might be different 2016 to 2021. Does that answer your question, Craig?
Yeah, thank you. And these 13 minor corrections, are they part of this phase one? And if we approve this evening, do they still have the ability to go through that correction process?
Well, the 13 minor we're proposing as a part of it, but that was more like clarifying. One of them was a comment from we said natural plantings, and they requested natural plantings with trees. I don't think we have to go back through a process to do that, but I think it was kind of implied. Here, 13 just so happens to be the same number. It's worthy of going back and talking about what's priority. So, but out of 90, that's not bad. We did get a lot of very positive input, and some, people that live very close by provided some very intimate, pointed things that we can easily incorporate. So that's the 13 minor corrections. And then there's 13, and I'll put the asterisk because that includes Holiday, that we're going to have to do more work, probably develop a further master plan, work to balance priorities. But I don't want to negate what a lot of people said, because there was a constituency that promoted one particular activity. So I think there's 13 that we can include right now that are part of, with just minor corrections. There's also 13, same number, that are probably going to take time to sort out what the best plan is. Is that?
Greg, are you good with that? If other hands?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I'm just trying to make sure we don't make a vote tonight that prevents those modifications from being made. If we've uncovered that there are modifications that need to be made, I want to make sure that those 13 or whatever. But yeah, no, I think, I feel like that's what you're saying. You're saying that the process will still allow those adjustments to be incorporated, even if we approve this tonight.
Yeah, the 13 where there are still further are later phases. We put those to later phases.
Perfect. Thank you. There you go.
Mr. Payne, you've had your hand up longest now.
The dates on when these phases are supposed to start. Like phase 2, when is that those projects supposed to start?
Phase 2, we're per our schedule, we're to be back discussing the list of those in September or October of this year. So we want to get phase 1 started, get all these people starting to work, and then come back at phase 2 6 months from now and talk about the next group of projects.
Phase 1 haven't started yet?
Not in design and construction.
Okay.
So per the bond requirements, first review by this board and then concurrence from the city commission before we can begin on any projects other than the 3 signature projects. So we're hoping to move that forward tonight.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Charlie Lykoff, I've got your hand up next line.
I'm ready to make a motion if Steffi doesn't have anything else to, whatever Steffi got, I'd like to make a motion that we move ahead.
I just have a question, if that's okay.
Okay, let Steffi go. Oh, have a question.
I appreciate it. I would have put my hand down if all the responses and questions were what I was thinking. So as you're doing the construction, my assumption is that as you see something that may need to be updated or repaired, that is done. Here's a simple example. The Jimmy Everett sign is pretty distressed. May seem minor, but if you're updating that building and you're updating the tennis courts and then you have this broken sign that looks pretty shabby, those are kind of things that may not be in a survey, right? So I'm just wondering, as you're globally doing this wonderful work, will those just be, is this an assumption that those will be repaired? That's my only question, and thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's assumed. That's another one where people don't take the energy to visit the room and comment that the sign is bad. I mean, they talk about wants, needs, priorities, but we have a full wayfinding package. I know through the master plan, we did an assessment of all the signage. There is a need, a lot of them need improvement. So we actually have a specialist that'll be looking at them all, and we're saying the sign, but it includes lots of other little things that were ADA improvements, repairs to certain facilities. Yes, we're certainly looking at all those things, but in light of what people said were their priorities. But a lot of those improvements are also what people, I think, are just seeing. There's just a need for capital reinvestment in the parks. There hasn't been a big push of a program like this in many years. So there's just the need overall for improvements. And yes, we are looking at every aspect of the park that can be included.
Thank you. I don't like to assume, so thank you very much. I appreciate that comment.
Mm-hmm.
I have one question. This request for the commission or a vote tonight on these projects, is this kind of more on a global scale where we're just recommending, yes, you move forward with phase 1? We're comfortable with the list of parks you're discussing, but is there a point where you will come back with the actual projects that will be going on in that park where we may have more room for hey, there does need to be the sign that needs to be dealt with. You've done XYZ, but we're looking for a dog park too, or just various things like that. Will there be any more discussion when it comes down to the finer things, or is that more on staff and consultants? Or once we make this recommendation, are we finished as a board, or do we still have more input, I guess?
Well, I'll never say, I mean, we're a partnership here. I mean, we're here working at the bequest of the city to bring this to closure. I would like to move forward programmatically. What are we building? We do intend to continue to keep the plans updated online, as we move from what I'll call 15% plans to 30 and beyond, and keep the public informed of what we're doing. But hopefully with at least this phase one group, we know what we're building, so that we're not changing, am I building a dog park or am I building a playground? And at this park, we're building a playground. At that one, we're building a dog park. So that at least we can move forward into the design phase, but that doesn't preclude us posting them or listening. I'd like to get, some projects moving. A lot of them are just pretty straightforward.
So Joe, let me add to also that, Caleb. So I think the board, there, as I understood when the commission put together the bond and the board's role, there's really two phases. Is one, to make sure that we got plenty of public input and that we were transparent, and that we made sure that we went out to the neighborhoods again to follow up, to make sure that we're doing what the neighborhoods want to do. So I think the board's role is to make sure we've done that. And then I think the other side of it is that as we move forward, you'll be looking at the expenditures and the bond, and if are we in line with the timeline that's on the website and the expenditures on the website. And if the board has concerns with that, then we'd be glad to do that. What I don't want to do, and I don't think any of us want to do, is start to second guess or come up with new ideas or changes as we move through the process, because one, it's going to cost us money. So if Joe and his group are out designing a park, and then we come back 6 months later and say, here's the park, and then somebody says, oh, we don't want a dog park, we want a playground. Well, that's going to cost more money, and that's going to start the whole process over again. So really, I think the board's role right now is conceptually that the projects make sense. We agree that the outreach was done. There's consensus on these projects, and we would like to see would advise the commission that we move forward with these phase one projects to start implementing the bond. That's how I see kind of the board's role and how it's written into the bond covenants.
Perfect, no problem. Charlie, I see your hands up again.
Yes, I think we should go ahead and put to a vote to approve the phase one list of projects and proposed park improvements that were listed in the park bond. Report on to the city commission.
Is that a motion?
Billy's made a motion. Do we have a second on it?
I'll second it.
Now we have room for discussion.
I have one real quick question. I'm sorry, if other people had a hand raised, I could stop.
No, go ahead. No hands are up, so the floor is open.
Okay, Joe, I see that for Hardy Park, there's a playground replacement slated. Phil and Carl can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that that's a relatively new playground. Certainly, I feel like within the last 10 years. And so that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be replaced, but whenever I've gone there, I thought it was in good condition. And so that factors into something I want to understand better. And that is, I understand that this is for capital improvements. And so, but this is for capital improvements over the course of 30 years, as I understand it. So for example, if the Hardy Park playground has worn out in 10 years and we go ahead and build a new one, what do we do 10 years from now? There won't be money to build another one. And one of the issues I always had with the master plan, the 2016 master plan, and actually Commissioner McKenzie said this himself in one of the commission conferences when the bond was first being discussed. And that is, he said, look, much of this is deferred maintenance because we as a board made that choice to not spend money on maintenance to keep taxes low. That's a summary of something that he said. Don't quote me, but in general, he said, like, look, this is deferred maintenance. And that was always one of my concerns about the master plan, is a lot of it, especially when you look at Holiday Park, is deferred maintenance, is not the original master plan, not as it was updated in order to get passed. And so as I look at Hardy Park, you know, a new playground, what are we going to do if the next one wears out just as quickly? And that's across the board. I mean, is this stuff that we're building going to last 30 years? That popped in my head because I thought that playground was actually pretty new. Thank you.
Well,
so this is Phil. Let me just say, first off, that playground is probably, Enrique can probably look it up. I would guess that playground's got to be at least 10 years old. And it gets a lot of use. So I would say by the time that thing, by the time we're ready to build a new one, I mean, if that one or other ones don't need to be replaced, then we'll either defer to spend doing it later, or we can spend that money somewhere else. We're not going to replace a new playground just because it says so, and if it's in good shape or it's fairly new. But you're right. I mean, so the life of the bond is 30 years, but there's going to be things on this bond that aren't going to last 30 years. I mean, you're going to have lights that probably have a 10-year warranty. Your athletic fields have about a 10-year warranty. Your synthetic turf has a 10-year warranty. So, you know, the life cycle is not going to last the entire 30 years. I don't think anything besides probably a building is going to last you 30 years. But the idea is that we're borrowing money to bring everything up to speed. And to your point, Carrie, I mean, who knows what's going to happen down the road? Hopefully, there's maintenance dollars to keep everything, replaced or repaired. But if not, it may come to another bond at some point. Who knows? But that's kind of where we're at this point. But your points, you're right on point.
But for example, like, let's say things like, I'm going to use the term facilities, meaning kind of like hard structured things, playgrounds, courts, things that has to be maintained. Let's say, for example, you had 1,000 in the city right now, and you had a budget of X to maintain those 1,000 facilities throughout your parks. And let's say as part of this, we add on, 25% new additional facilities. So now you have 1,250 facilities that you have to maintain, but your budget may or may not change, and the bond is just for building the thing, not for maintaining it. Is that a concern? Like, as we say, hey, build a skate park, build all these pickleball courts, build this, build that. We build all this stuff, but if the budget to maintain it doesn't go up, how do we, that's a concern.
That's a very valid concern. And we often, our master plan did include, statements of you're going to have to increase your maintenance. Every time you add new facilities, you have to, of course, add the consideration of keeping them up. In many cases, some of these things are probably going to be, at least for the first couple of years, less maintenance. The current maintenance on some of the sports lighting and some of the playgrounds is getting to the point of being ridiculous, just like if you were driving a 15-year-old car. We do always recognize that need for keeping them up. I do think, whether it was since 2008 or there's been some cycles where probably the capital life cycle replacement budgets that are generally part of a regular capital improvements programs haven't been as regular as they could be. But this program will hopefully bring everything up to a level that at least catches it back up. Now, if you leave it again and don't invest in upkeep in 10 years, of course, point's very well taken.
So I hear what you're saying, and that makes total sense as to if you're just replacing an outdated structure. But if we start, or an outdated facility, but if we start adding more facilities, so they're just now are just a total, the total number of facilities that have to be maintained just keeps going up and up. especially as we build new parks as well. You could really get into a situation here where it's not just you're not just replacing an old playground with a new playground. You're building things that didn't have previously it wasn't a park there, or it was green space, and now you've built something there. Well, part of what AECOM does is, as it designs a park, if it's proposing to add additional facilities or structures, will there be any sort of tracking to say, look, this is the design for this park. We anticipate that this is going to increase the maintenance budget for this park from X to Y, so that the city commission and us as well can take that into consideration, so we don't end up building a bunch of stuff that we can't afford to maintain. I think that we as a board and the commission both need to realize, like, for example, everything at Lockhart is going to be new. That doesn't exist. So whatever our current budget is for maintenance is now got to cover like all this new stuff, Tunnel Top as well. So I think that as we spend money to build capital new projects, we need to be somehow tracking, like, what is going to be the ongoing maintenance costs of this, so that we can see, like, are we authorizing building things that will require essentially a doubling of the Parks and Rec budget just to keep them from falling apart? And I'm not saying that I have a problem with doubling the Park and Rec budget. I don't get to vote on that, but I think we should be aware if that's what we're doing, so we can say, hey, maybe we either slow down, maybe we do more natural things than as many hardscape facilities, or something along those lines.
May I interject? Caleb?
Sure. We've got several hands up, but
I'm
if
sorry.
it's
I'm
part
sorry.
of the discussion, I'm
Okay.
fine with it.
It is part of the discussion. Is it something that if we approve everything, which it sounds like that's the direction we're going to head, can we also do a recommendation to the city commission with this approval that consideration be taken to increase the budget as we increase the number of new parks and facilities that weren't in the budget or weren't budgeted previously because they didn't exist? That being said, that we're going to spend this money on all these new venues and structures that had never had a line item in the budget previously, that consideration needs to be addressed when they start budgeting for the following year, or when this park is finally open for business. I think that's something that needs to be brought to commission as part of our recommendation, or inclusive to our recommendation when we go ahead and if we approve it.
Yeah, I understand that. And that's probably largely one of the department's role, is to explain budgetary needs. But as a board, we could always, add it to our communication in writing, just to remind them, as parks are redeveloped, as things are redesigned, as we improve or increase parks, therefore there will be additional costs incurred by the city for long-term maintenance, continuous maintenance, so that if nothing else, it's part of their awareness or radar. But it should be part of the department to be explaining that as well, and to raise that in their budgetary requests throughout the years.
So this is Enrique, if I may. Hi, for those who don't know me, Enrique Sanchez. I'm the Deputy Parks Director. I kind of oversee maintenance and some of those aspects. So as we build items and put new stuff in, we try to calculate those operating impacts and share that with the commission, because I have those same concerns as the person responsible. We want to replace our playgrounds before they get to the state of Holiday Park, for example, where it's half or mostly boarded up and pretty much just have the swings left. So we try to get ahead of it. We try to calculate those costs in. But to the other point, I think what we're asking for tonight are the phase 1 projects, which are mostly just hey, we know we need a new playground here. We know we need some upgraded lights. We know we need some ADA improvements. That's what was in our master plan. That's was concurred with the public outreach. And we want to move forward with those. These other items, like the new parks we've purchased and developing those will be in future phases. And I think those will warrant future conversations along with our signature projects. But right now we're just trying to get these simple ones where we have these maintenance needs off the ground so that we can start working on that and we can reduce some of our kind of ongoing maintenance, duct taping these projects. So I hope that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Hopefully that resolves the questions. I still have multiple hands up. So Deborah and Carrie, you guys are good with that answer. I'll move forward. Further questions? Steffi, you've got your hand up longest from my queue here.
Thank you. Thank you for noticing. Just a comment, I'm just wondering if we could put this as a recommendation. There are plenty of dog parks where they charge residents about $60 a year. Perhaps that will help with the cost. And I'm really glad this topic is brought up because I don't believe that as people are doing the survey, even including myself, you don't think, new structure, new maintenance budget. So I think this is a good topic, and I just want to bring that up what others are doing, which I'm sure you're all aware, in terms of having a key fob and charging a minimal for a year to keep the dog park up.
Good comment. Greg, you've got a hand up. Greg Martin, your hand's up.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, for the record, I'm in support of this, and so I hope that we can move forward. I do have a question, and for lack of a better way of saying it, kind of a PR thing. I mean, once the word is out that we've basically recommended or approved of phase one, has pickleball or the skate park been addressed? And if not, I mean, I've looked through it. I haven't seen a proposed skate park anywhere, and I don't know that I've seen a lot of pickleball courts added. I believe that we're going to get some backlash on that, right? I mean, how can we go through the phase one of this massive deal and we don't address those things? And a little bit to Carrie's point, I think the same guy went to every park website and said we need a skate park. So that's probably, but it's still been out there a long time. And I guess as a parks department, how do we manage that?
Hey, Greg, this is Carl.
How you doing, man?
Very good, very good. So we internally, we are addressing the pickleball challenge that we have. We recognize the need from Holiday Park with the pickleball players that we have there. So we have basically been given the green light to proceed with adding some courts at Sunrise Middle. And of those courts, we'll have 6 new pickleball courts and a few lined courts on site there. We also have some plans to, once we kind of work through, and Joe can kind of speak to this in reference to George English Tennis Center and the pad there. So there's a couple of locations throughout the city that we intend to add pickleball courts to kind of alleviate this concern as far as like a phase one portion.
Okay, so those are just current modifications that we're making now, right?
That is
So,
correct.
by the way, and I agree with the skate park thing. I think the answer to the skate park is that we're looking for a new facility to accommodate a skate park. The phase one is taking care of our current ones, but I just want to protect you guys from some. I'm a little concerned there could be some backlash. I've gone on the website. The website's spoken. We don't have a big pickleball court, project in phase one, right? Or the skate park. Whatever. I really like the rooftop idea, by the way. I'm creatively thinking that one out.
Yeah, we certainly have had quite a response to pickleball, and so we're fully aware of that, and we're certainly going to stay on top of that as best we can, and also looking at other areas that we can add additional pickleball.
Greg, it's funny you brought that up because since having been voted the chair of the Parks Board, common thing I've heard now from the public has been pickleball, 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 pickleball. And it's been coming from every corner. And I don't play pickleball, so I don't know it, but it's interesting that of all the things that families even involved in, I keep hearing about pickleball.
So we should have a socially distanced Parks Board meeting at the pickleball courts because yeah, it's quite a topic. But look, I think that's one of those things that might have modified since the 2016 original surveys, right? And I want to stay back. I am in support of what we're doing here, but I think we need to be prepared to address why a phase 1 program is being sent up and there's not a major pickleball component to it. And if I go back, we need a new facility, or whatever the case may be. I just, because it's out there, you know, and it's gonna come back. So unless it's in there somewhere, Joe. Joe, is it in there? Is it part of the Georgia?
So this is Phil again. Phase
Okay.
one are the consensus projects that came out of the 2016, and we went back out and we have consensus for the 2016 improvements.
Okay.
Pickleball was not part of that. Skate park was not part of that.
Yeah.
So we're working on those things, but I think I can easily argue that we're looking at all those things plus everything else that was asked, as Joe mentioned. There's a lot of wants, and we're going to try to figure out how we can do as much as we want, and we're working on all that. But we're not ready in phase 1. I mean, we just closed the portal less than a month ago. So we want to get moving on things that we have consensus for, and we don't have consensus on pickleball or skate park at this point. So that's going to be discussed, and we're going to work through that, and we're going to do the best we can to make everybody happy. But we can't wait. I really don't want, and I understand what you're saying, Greg. I just can't. I don't want to wait on these other 55 projects until we find these pickleball players a place to play pickleball. We got to get moving.
I agree. I'm in support of it.
Great comment and great follow-up.
Thank you, Phil.
I don't see any more hands up. Consensus to move forward as a board with a motion on the floor. Leona, do we need to do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Alex Colazzo,
Yeah, I'm excited about it and ready to proceed.
so
As
that's
a
a
yes.
yes. Brucey Cummins, Caleb Gunter,
Yes, please proceed.
Carrie Villeneuve,
Yes.
Charlie Lykoff,
Pay it forward. Let's go.
Darren Heitner,
Absolutely, yes.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
Happy to put the first shovel in the ground.
Gail Butler,
Yes, I agree.
Greg Martin,
Yes.
Joanne Smith, Mariana Seiler,
Yes.
Mary Pelican,
Yes.
Robert Payne,
Yes, let's do this.
Seppi Pascal,
Yes, thank you.
and Tangerine Moore.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That was unanimous, Leon.
Let's go.
All right.
Well, thank you all for your time, confidence, and patience tonight. We appreciate your support, and you'll probably hear from me again in the future. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe,
thanks,
and
Phil.
thanks, board. Joe, the pressure's on, so it's on you now, buddy.
Okay, it's all me. Okay, everyone. I appreciate your time. I'll drop off if you have other business. Thanks again.
Right. Director Phil Thornburg, you're next on our list, sir. We want to hear about park impact fees and where we can get some new maintenance now.
Good evening. So I think this was asked to be put on the board, on the board agenda. So let me give a quick background on the park impact fees, and then if there's any specific questions I can answer for the board. But we do have the park impact fee in place now. It's been in place for quite a few years. And the way a park impact fee works is that new development in the city pays, it's by square footage, but it's roughly about $2,500 per unit, additional unit, to kind of buy into the park system is in theory. So for example, if there's nothing there now and they build 100 units, they pay 100 times the $2,500. If there's 10 units there now and they tear it down and build 100 units, then they would pay for 90 units times the $2,500. So that goes into this park impact fees. And the park impact fees can only be utilized for new development. So you can't use it for maintenance. You can only use it for new development, with the idea that you are adding amenities to the park. So that fund has been in place for quite a few years. It's really been utilized mainly for larger regional projects. Here regionally, or lately, we've put money towards or the commission's put money towards the aquatic center. They put money towards Tunnel Top Park. There's a River Oaks new park over in the southwest that's being developed that some of the money was put into. So that's kind of how it's been utilized in the past. And the way the park impact fee worked was that money could be utilized anywhere in the city. So then in 2019, I think it was July, the state legislation kind of revisited it, and they are requiring cities to look a little closer to the nexus of where the impact fees are coming from and where they're being spent. So we're calling that new money. So the new money now, we need to look a little closer as those park impact fees are spent, that it's I guess it's helping those new units and those individuals moving into those new units. So there's been some, it's fairly new, but there's been some discussion on that and some people have used it. So it's still very gray, but if you look at the aquatic center, for example, or Holiday Park, say or Mills Pond, say the softball fields, people that would drive to that, in theory, the entire city would go there to play softball, or the entire city would go to the aquatic center to swim. Things like that, you can use money from all around the city to fund those projects. What you can't do is take money from one community, say in the Northeast, and build a playground at a neighborhood park in the Southwest, because the people in the Northeast probably are never going to go to that playground in the Southwest to use that playground. But if it's a destination, something that's built as a destination, then the radius gets bigger. So it's very confusing and very kind of hard to define, but you have to make a good argument. So a dog park, for example, a dog park probably has a bigger radius, because you may only have 4 or 5 of those in the city. So your radius may grow to 2 or 3 miles. A community center may have 2 or 3 miles of a radius. So you have to look at that a little bit closer as these come forward. We haven't been in that position yet, because like I said, we haven't brought anything forward that would be funding a smaller individual project. But as we do that, if that's what the funding is going to be used for, then that definitely has to be in place. So all that being said, it's kind of a background on where we are at today. There's about $5 million in the Park Impact Fee Fund as we speak. Staff really has not been driving using those monies. It's really been driven more by the commission and some of the projects that needed to be funded. Like I said, the Tunnel Top and the Aquatic Center, some of the funding there came up short. So since there was additional amenities being built at those 2 locations, some of the Park Impact Fee money was allocated to those projects. So I'll stop there if anybody has any specific questions.
Quick question, Phil. This is Alex here. Just wanted to find out if when you're talking about the park impact fees, is that for private residences only, or aren't some of the commercial businesses and buildings going up required to kick into that park impact fee?
They are not. Back when we implemented the park impact fees, you could do both, but at that time, the commission at the time did not want to, they wanted to encourage commercial development.
I see.
And so they didn't want to put a barrier for commercial development at that time. So the decision was only to go residential. And that's the way it's
Like
been ever
say,
since.
say Tunnel Top Park, for instance, it's my understanding that some of the buildings around there kicked in quite a bit to redo some of that area. Am I mistaken in saying that? Or is
It's
the downtown
no, I mean,
Tunnel Top, I believe, I thought either the what was it, like the Urban League or someone, one of the buildings there that was being erected was responsible for helping redo that area. Is that correct?
not that I'm aware of. I don't
Okay.
know that they didn't, but we had money in the bond, and then we've also given more money in park impact fees to help fund that project. But I wasn't aware of any private donations that went towards that project.
Okay. All right. Maybe I remember the meeting a long time ago, but I could have sworn that some of the businesses or one of the buildings specific to that area was part of the contract that they had to provide X amount of, public use area or something like that. And we're supposed to help fund the development of that particular area. But I'm, as far as the park impact fees goes, I think that two things on what you're telling us is, you said that there's a gray area. And I understand that it makes sense that you wouldn't want to take, those fees from one neighborhood and move them to another. But you think it's outside the realm of possibility that, the city could maybe use those funds for maintenance? I mean, now that we're on that conversation, and since it is a gray area, maybe we can make a request to somehow evenly divide up some of those to maintain some of these new parks.
No. Quick answer is no. It has to be for new development and new new usage in a park. You can buy new parks. You can build in a park to increase in theory the numbers that would come to that park to service the new individuals coming in, but you cannot use it for maintenance. You can't tear down and rebuild something with park impact fees.
Okay.
And you can't maintain. So if the community center is already there, Alex, you can't tear it down and build a new one with park impact fees. Now, if you're tearing down a 2,000 square foot and you're going to build a 10,000 square foot with a gym, you could probably make the argument you could pay for the gym with the park impact fees, but what was there before, you couldn't use park impact fees for.
I gotcha. And with all the new development going on in the city, I mean, have you heard anything, in the inner halls of City Hall about possibly starting to maybe, tax some of these businesses that are coming in now that seems like we're getting to capacity here. So, it might be a good time to start that discussion for taxes or some way to, get more funds to, I would imagine that the coffers at this stage are growing for the city of Fort Lauderdale. I mean, it's no secret that the development has been blowing up down here. And I think that's a great thing. But as we're moving forward, it'll be interesting to see how we figure out ways to budget and fund some of the maintenance for these new programs. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mary, your hand's up longest at this point.
If I could, just two quick questions for you, Phil. It's Mary Pelican. One is, do you have any idea, the big buildings that are going up in Flagler, in the Flagler area, have they, I'm assuming their impact fees haven't been paid yet. And I mean, first of all, do you know that? And could those impact fees be used towards the property known as a one-stop shop that the city already owns, but is not a park? It's just a vacant lot or piece of property at the moment. So that's my one question. Could those impact fees be used in that scenario where we own the property, but there's nothing on it, or we being the city? And then my other question is just about DC Alexander Park. And I drive by it and I know that it should be ready to be worked on, at least the last I saw it a few weeks ago, but it seems like nothing's happening there. And I thought there were impact fees slated for that construction too. So if they could get an update on that, that would be cool. That's it. My two things.
Yeah, so the first, to answer your first question, Mary, as far as the Flagler developments, some of those have been in the ground for a few years, have paid their impact fees. They pay their impact fees when they pull a building permit. So that's when they actually pay their impact fees. And so we make sure we get them at that time. So once their building permit is pulled, that way we know how many units are going in. And secondly, to answer the same question, if in fact that property becomes a public park and a zone park, then definitely that money could be used to develop that park. If it becomes something other than a park, then you could not use park impact fees. As far as DC Alexander, then yes, that could be used for park impact fees as well. And that probably would, as kind of like the aquatic center, I think, depending on what goes there, in the plans that I've seen, if it looks like it's going to draw people from a wide area, then you could probably use a wide area of park impact fees to help fund that. Again, the language is kind of confusing. It just says you have to draw a nexus between the two, between the development and the development who paid in, and then the development of the park or the acquisition of the park, and that it will benefit those individuals in the development. So if you can make the argument that the people in Flagler, for example, would go to DC Alexander because of it's a destination playground or whatever goes in there, then you could make the argument you could use park impact fees there.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, you're good with that response? All right, I've got Mariana Seiler, your hand's up now longest.
I was just wondering, Phil, is there a way to provide us with kind of a chart, like where the development that paid the impact fee, like what district it's in, so that we can see exactly how much and then go from there on figuring out how to use it?
Yes, we can tell you what's been paid probably in the last 3 or 4 years. I'm not for sure. So the other thing that's kind of odd about this or different is that our Department of Sustainability department actually brings the fees in. They take the fees in because you're going to them to get your building permit. So they track all that and then they send us over the address and then how much they paid. So we can then see, again, now mainly since the change in the wording of the statute, but we can kind of see where the money came from and how much, so we can do that. So we could provide the board with where the money came from, how much it was, and then we can also, probably provide you what it's been spent on the last 2 or 3 years to give you an idea on that. And then we can give you what the current balance is. So we can put that together.
Okay, thank you. Also, do you know if it's retroactive in using the money or if it's retroactive for money? Like basically, is it the money we already received, we can still use however we want, or because we've held on to it, we have to now use it in accordance with the statute?
It's not retroactive. It was effective, I think, either July 31 or maybe September 31 at the end of the session. I can't remember, but it was.
It's end of session. It's the July 31st date.
Yeah, so it would have been. So starting that date is, again, what we're calling new money that we have to track a lot closer. Anything that was prior to that is in a bigger pot of money that we can use any way we want to use it.
Okay.
But I can say that money's probably is pretty much all been spent.
Okay.
Because one thing we do also, you have to use park impact fees within 7 years, or you have to give it back. So always when we spend it from the oldest money first. So I think I'm almost for sure that probably all the money, if not all the money prior to 19 has been spent. So all the money that's probably in the books now is what we would consider new money.
Okay, so then everything after July 31st, if we could see it allocated, and then just let us know how much is in there that's not geographically allocated, essentially.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Carrie, I've got you.
Thank you, Caleb. So Phil, I understand what you're saying about, that geographically the money should be spent where the development is. And I think that makes perfect sense because that's where the people are. So if there's a much more dense area, you need more park amenities for those people. And I think Flagler Village is probably the preeminent example of this. And I have concern when there just isn't that much space. So you're getting more and more dense. There's not that much space. Obviously, there's the issue with one-stop shop that's going on now with the potential, the Revolution Live may come there and do something, which is a topic I would like to revisit. I'm just previewing this to the board. I'd like to revisit that when we get to communications to the commission. But as to how it relates to the park impact fees that you're bringing up, Phil, has your department ever looked at if there's things that other cities do to incentivize developers to include additional amenities in their projects? The reason I bring that up is take Flagler Village. You've got someone who tears down 5 buildings that used to house a total of 50 people and or 50 units and builds a block-wide project that has 500 units in it. So you're really increasing the density, but there just isn't that much space there to say, okay, well, we're going to take those park impact fees from that building and use it where? It's Flagler Village. You got to use it somewhere that people are going to walk to. There isn't that much more space in Holiday Park to just keep building more stuff. I don't know if one-stop shop is going to be a park or not, but even then, there's only so much you can do there. Peter Feldman is tiny. Is there a way to incentivize those buildings to say, hey, look, you don't put something on the roof of your parking garage? I get why they don't do it. They don't want to build an extra level. Makes sense. They want to make money. But at the same time, when they don't build that extra level of their parking garage and turn it into a sports field or pickleball courts or synthetic grass dog park, when they don't do that, they externalize that need to the surrounding parks that really can't keep absorbing it. There just isn't enough space in Holiday Park to absorb all of the needs that will continue to arise. And all you've got is Sistrunk Park, Peter Feldman, Holiday, and Holiday, even then, I don't know how often people are comfortable walking across Federal Highway. So you may really just have Sistrunk, Peter Feldman, and one stop if it actually even becomes a park. So instead of just looking at it in terms of bringing in impact fees and then building stuff in the few parks you have, can you incentivize them to actually create those amenities for their residents so at least part of the need is already met by the development itself?
So I can just say that we have planners that review through our development review committee and that sit down with developers to try to encourage them to do as much of that as we can, understanding they have development rights. So we do have setbacks, we do have public space requirements, and they do encourage them to provide as much public amenities and landscaping and setbacks and all that as they can. But then it comes down to, of course, the developers wanting to make a profit. So there's arguments on both sides, and we encourage that, but it's not something we can require them to do.
But I'm saying, have we looked at, are there things that other cities do to incentivize the developer? And I'm not talking about public space. I'm talking about the only amenity they build for their own residents is a pool deck and an inside gym. So they're external. So all of their residents' other outdoor recreational needs have been externalized to the public parks. And I'm saying they could use more of their own space to provide those amenities to their residents. It would cost more, but are there programs that other cities have in place, financial incentives? Like, for example, we'll waive a portion of your park impact fees if you will build, a public green space amenity deck. Again, it's going to be private to your residents, but at least that would be 500 units of people that have that amenity. So they're not looking to the public parks necessarily as the only source of meeting that need.
So I haven't heard of other cities doing that, but I'll be, I can ask around and look around and see if there's anything that people have encouraged them to do something and then waive their park impact fee.
I'd just be interested to know, because I just don't think that the 2-3 parks in that neighborhood can absorb all of the need if the developers continue failing to provide any real outdoor amenities other than a pool to their residents.
Gary, are you finished with that? Okay. Charlie Lakoff, I see your hands up next.
Yeah, Phil, Mariana kind of touched on this about DC Alexander Park. And from your conversation, it sounds like that's kind of up in the air, like we're back to ground zero, or nobody's really sure what's going to happen with that park. Is that the case?
Well, it's not, it's ground zero in that the plans are done and there's no funding to build the park. So there was funding initially when the
right.
Everything was planned down there, but because of different things that I guess took priority in the short term and funding was needed, that the funding now has been shifted. And so everything, it's shovel ready, but we're now looking to find funding. I know that Commissioner Glassman brought it up at the last meeting and asked the city manager to go back and scrub and try to find money to build that park since it's ready to roll. And so I'm sure that the city manager is in that process right now. I haven't heard any latest on the money that's been found or what the plan is, but I know that was a directive of the vice mayor. And so I'm sure that it'll be addressed soon.
What was the projected cost of that park?
It seems like it was around $500,000.
$5.5 million.
5.5. Okay. All right. All right.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was that the question, Charlie?
Yeah, that answers my question. I was just curious. I didn't realize it was, so to speak, that it was shovel ready.
Okay.
Except for the money.
Does that conclude the board's questions for Phil Thornburg regarding park impact fees? Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome. Thank you.
On the board comments, have any concerns, questions directly to board activities, new business?
Gail's raising her hand.
Okay, Gail, go ahead. I don't see, somehow I'm not seeing your hand up. Oh, you've got it up on your screen.
I'm waving it.
Physical hand up.
I'm
There you go. Go ahead, please.
I'm not great at Zoom, but anyway, I just want to know, because I've grown up here and that Indian head on DC Alexander Park has been there forever. And I'm sure you showed what was going to happen to that park before I came on this board. But is there any way we could see that sometime? Because I have no idea what's going to happen to that park. And I know the money was taken for, the Swimming Hall of Fame. I get that. I understand that. And that's a wonderful project. But did this board ever see what was going to happen to DC Alexander Park? And again, I'm new, so I don't know.
I recall a presentation on it quite some time ago, but I'm not aware of the internal works. But was that question directed towards Phil or towards somebody else in the department?
I guess Phil may be gone, but I think it'd be interesting for maybe those of us who are new to this board to just see what that design was.
Sure. Carl, is that something that, or Phil, are you still on there? Is that something that could be either dug up and emailed out to the board?
So yeah, this is Phil. I don't know if Carl remembers, since he's been the liaison, when and if the board saw the plans. It's been through many iterations and many public outreaches, and it's changed about 15 times. But we can definitely provide you with what the plan is now that's been finalized and what's moving forward that they're looking to fund and then build. So we'll get that out to the board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Any other comments? Charlie, I see your hand up.
Yes, this goes to having that repository we were all talking about, where all this information could reside, so we could look at it from time to time and not go playing hide and go seek through our emails and things like that, email retention. So is that moved anywhere forward as far as a repository for the documents that we see and review and what have you?
That's a great question, Charlie.
Charlie, to answer your question, the website was updated to provide going forward new backups. Any backups that are for any pending or upcoming meetings will or have been deposited to that. It hasn't post dated from previous meetings that we've had, but from the point where we made the agreement to have that made, our IT department did update the website, so it is there as a column separate from the minutes as well as the agendas.
Okay, we don't need special access or anything like that, or?
No, it's on the city's main
Thank you.
webpage under the Parks Board. And when you go under, you can view the minutes and the applicable agendas, and any supporting backups for that meeting will be posted in the middle as a backup.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's great, Leona. Is there any way to try and pursue further back historical stuff, or is that too challenging and probably a lot of it may not have been totally preserved? I don't know.
That I would have to find out from our IT, because all they did was update it from the point of when it was brought up, because that's a lot of years of backtracking you have to do, actually go back in there to find those backups and put them back in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
I'm,
actually.
I'm thinking of the, sorry.
No, go ahead, Charlie.
I was thinking like the Panthers presentation, DC Alexander, some of the more recent things over the last, 3+ years that some people who are new to the board may be interested in. The topics come up from time to time. So just wondering if it's could be added, or if some of us may actually have those presentations in our email that could be resurfaced and put into that repository.
It's a great thought, Charlie, and it actually came to mind earlier this week on a couple things for me. Some of the comments Carrie made earlier regarding deferred maintenance and things like that, that this bond is covering tremendous amounts of that load. I still remember the first board meeting I came to, and this probably had to have been 5-6 years ago. The department presented a report of just deferred maintenance, capital deferred maintenance across the entire city that the department was handling, and that was just a massive number at the time, and that was long before we were discussing a bond or anything of that nature. So looking back on it, I was thinking, wow, I wonder how much of this is actually, I'd be interested to see how much of it resurfaces in the bond. And another thing that came up this week was, again, the pickleballers that were coming to me over and over. One of them mentioned, well, that's not the first time we've presented to the board. That we presented a couple months ago. We presented plans from 2-3 years ago, things like that. And it's interesting how as the board turns over, the institutional or historical knowledge doesn't always carry forward, and so a lot of us do think it might be the first time we've heard something, and it's unique. So it'd be a great, as you say, a repository to have.
Can I just say something? This is Gail. Oh,
go ahead.
I'm with Birch State Park, and we have some problems with our tunnel under A1A, and we were trying to find the original plans. I mean, this tunnel is 50, 60 years old, and we went to various departments, and finally we wound up Homeland Security. Can you imagine? That's ridiculous. I mean, anyway, so I'm just saying that sometimes you have to go back so far, and then you wind up with something like that. It's wild. Anyway, that's just a comment.
We've been talking about a repository for quite some time now. So I think this is something that needs to have some serious consideration because of what Caleb just mentioned, there are people who term out, people come in and, instead of reinventing the wheel, people could just go and do a little homework on their own. Like, for example, with Gail, I've seen most of the iterations of DC Alexander, and the final one is actually quite beautiful. And Gail, I think you'll agree when you see it. A lot of shade, a lot of trees, a lot of areas where people can interact. But at any rate, when you come into the board, it'd be nice that people can actually just, okay, I have this place to go and I can, get some quiet time on my own and actually get up to speed with some of the things that maybe in the pipeline, maybe coming down the pipeline, or come up right now, such as DC Alexander Park, because I had been sort of, that kind of went to sleep for a little while and now it's coming back. So I think it's something that we need to act on and need to go forward with.
Absolutely. And another park that was discussed was the one-stop shop property that's resurfaces throughout the years. It's come up many a times in the past. So I think there's a lot of things that we've seen come and go that it'd be good to hold on to some of that knowledge.
Quick suggestion.
Alex, I see your hand.
Yeah, quick suggestion, and this may be a question for Leona. I mean, we've had this problem as president of the Civic Association, and going back long enough from when we had to switch from paper files to digital files and stuff. And one of the things we did was we just had a Dropbox for our group, and I don't know if that's something that the city would allow. But I mean, for me personally, I do keep all the stuff that I get, all the attachments, and I just stick it in a folder on my computer. And if I need to go back, that's only good for as long as I've been on the board. And, just like everybody else that's new, I came in, I think, right when DC Alexander was just finishing up, getting commissioned and moving forward. And I'm trying to think back to some of the renderings and some of the pictures and presentations that we've seen. But I mean, that feels like an eternity ago now, even though it's just a little over a year, I suppose. But I don't know if that's something, Leona, is that something that the city has for any of the committees or anything, like a Dropbox where the board would have access to certain files, PDFs and things like that?
Unfortunately, they don't. The closest thing we have is what was created on the actual webpage for the Parks Board. So if you go and you want to look up the agenda or the applicable minutes that goes with that, the backup would now be in the center column to allow you to see what was provided for that meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, it's just a suggestion. I agree with that. I think it's a good way to get caught up. And, if you miss a meeting, you can go back and look at some of the things. I don't know what the best way to accomplish that is, but I know for us regular people, Dropbox was a great, option, but maybe there's something else we could do.
Leona, when you mention the website where the board can look at material, is that something different than what the public can access, or do we have a separate login, or is that just across the board?
It's general public information. It's the public website. Yeah.
Charlie, go ahead. I see your hand up. Charlie, you're on mute.
Let me try that again. Leona, is that because of sunshine laws that we have to have it open to the public?
Well, anything that comes before the board is public knowledge. So it's all posted on the city's website. There's no special, but I understand your point in asking if there would be a special box for that, but I guess it could fall under those laws, correct?
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I think a repository, though, Leona, would be important for the board.
That's something we've gone back and forth with IT, and I think a lot of it falls back for security purposes and reasons. I mean, the closest they've given us the leeway, like I said, was to provide the backup column field, which is now accessible to anybody that wants to see what those backup files were for that meeting at the time. And that could be found at the city's website under our Parks Board webpage. But that's the closest we got to it.
I work with repositories day in and day out, and it's all project specific because my area of law is construction defect. And each particular project, whether it's an association that is 2 towers, 3 towers, or whatever, we have specific repositories for each and every one of those projects that are secure and specific to that individual login. So there has to be some way around the city can figure this out if we're doing this, in the legal field. Because if the legal field can do it, I think the city can do it.
So this is Phil. We'll look into it, but I think it's a little different when you're in the public and you're in the private sector. We don't have drop boxes in the city. We don't have folders for individual boards. Everything's open to the general public. So the only thing we can do is maybe like the commission does, where you can go to the commission agendas and then type in, you can search for something. You can type in DC Alexander and it'll bring up every commission agenda item that dealt with DC Alexander. So there may be some way to search the Parks and Rec Advisory Board website or the backups there, but IT is going to tell you, just like Leona's trying to explain, that they're not going to put anything in these special folders. It's got to be out there for anybody that wants to come and look at whatever they want to, and they ought to be able to find it just as easy as you guys can. So we have to make sure that whatever we do, it has to be open to every single person in the world, and they need to be able to get to exactly the same material that you all are looking for as well. So I understand what you're asking us, and we'll see what we can do. And maybe we can do, again, some kind of a way to search, if that helps, because if there's too much information on the agendas and you don't want to have to go through every agenda to see what's there, maybe we can put a search feature, but you can't start making individual boxes for the board.
The backup's actually really intuitive. Like if you go and look at the website, it says, like, this is the meeting, these are the 3 Fort Lauderdale, the Aquatic Center backups. So if we could just get the last 6 months or so updated, then maybe that would be enough.
That we can definitely do, Mariana. I'll have to reach out to IT and see if they could create another column for the previous year, because I think they started only doing it for this period. So we can definitely
titled by project. So it's really, once you look at it, if it was just there, we'd be able to find it pretty easily. Then you wouldn't even need to search.
Steffi, I think I had a hand up for you, but I don't see it now. And I see Charlie's hand up again. Charlie Lyko.
Yeah, here we go again. What if we do have, some of us may have some of these presentations because we've been on the board for, 2, 3, 4 years. Is that something we should be able to send to you and you could categorize it back to the original meeting? So it would be part of the public knowledge that may not presently be. Are we allowed to do that for you, Leona, or not?
I don't think that'll be necessary, Charlie, because I can easily go back and see what I sent out, whatever attachments were included. I do know sometimes there were times where things were changed in a presentation. So hopefully, there's no discrepancy there in terms of it was not the last presentation, because sometimes the presentation we send out to the board sometimes often get updated by the time they present to the board. So, I'll do my best in going back and pulling everything that I have, and I can update it that way.
Yeah, because there's some hot topics where always they come up from time to time that we all want to, be part of or have some knowledge of. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any more board comments?
Just one more, Caleb, just as we're trying to figure out, the Dropbox. I don't know if we're looking for anything specific, but it seems like everybody just wants to see the renderings and the drawings and the layouts, things of that nature. And maybe if there was just a quick link on the website, I don't know if I just was scrolling around on the Parks website and tried punching in DC Alexander and stuff, and they don't have the renderings there. So maybe instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we can just figure out a way to get the diagrams and the renderings and the layouts and the drawings like a quick link on the websites there, whether it's the city website or the parks website, and that would probably solve a lot of problems. That's it.
Steffi, I see your hand up again. I think it's been up a couple times. I'm not sure if it's by mistake.
Steffi, please press *6 to unmute. *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I was having trouble with my computer, so I see everyone, but I had to use my phone. So thank you for that *67. It just makes me think of being president of Victoria Park Civic Association. I had just about all turnover with board and chairs. We didn't have anything really organized, so everything is now set up. This is a little over a year ago at this point, in folders on Google Doc. But now that I'm hearing everyone, it sounds like we can't do that. We also have put together standards of procedures. So if there's any turnover with chairs, a new person stepping in gets it, what their role is, what's been done in the past. My point is there's no onboarding for a new board member. There's no one shadowing me, shadowing the new board. We just show up on the first meeting. I like that there's training that's going to come probably after I would have already had 3 meetings. I have some experience, luckily, with Civic Association, but it really would have been nice to have someone sit down with me, say, you know, more of a formal, big picture, what the person in my role did before, something like that. Otherwise, you do your best. I'm an outgoing person, as you can tell when I spoke. If I wasn't outgoing, I probably would have been a lot more quieter and just not wanting to say too much, just, you know, wanting to listen more, but maybe I would have something to contribute. So I'd like to offer up, perhaps there could be some type of short onboarding for new board members to get them up to speed. Thank you very much.
It's a great comment as well. Are we good with board comments? Oh, no, I see Charlie, you got a hand up.
Yeah, I guess that's a plug for the meeting next Wednesday for, I guess, be kind of like an overview of the sunshine law, and that next Wednesday online. If you
That's right.
been or need a refresher or whatever, Zoom in.
It is beyond, what I'm talking about is beyond the sunshine law. I mean, that's just one piece, right? How to run a meeting, the certain verbiage that's used. But there's a lot that goes on here. Who shows up? We may have a city manager. Here's 2021. That'll probably be on future agendas. It would have been kind of nice to know that information. And I look to the board to help, you know, help newbies, right? If someone who's more senior can volunteer and take, you know, 30 minutes out of their day, I think it would be helpful. Thank you.
Hey, Steffi, that is a great idea, but when it comes to a board like this, that's where you run into sunshine problems. So, like, for example, you know, Caleb can't have a call with the new members to do the exact type of thing that you're saying, which in the Civic Association is great and needed, but here you just can't do it because none of us are allowed to talk. And I mean, obviously the city officials can correct me if I'm wrong, but while I think that what you're proposing is a great idea, I think that's the limitation, is that no one on this board could have a call or a separate conversation with a new member outside of the context of this meeting.
So they can't even.
But maybe there could be written materials. Maybe there could be some sort of written materials or something.
That's what I was going to say. I get the sunshine law. We have to be really careful. You know, I totally get that. Not in the Civic Association where we can talk freely, right? Amongst chair people, amongst board. So I get it. I know there's a fine line. So I guess, yeah, I guess it would have to be more in written form, just a little guide, a little direction versus your first meeting is next Wednesday. Oh, okay. And this is the agenda and you're voting on something. All right, I'll be there. I won't miss it. So Carrie, thank you for that good reminder. I appreciate it.
Steffi, I just want to confirm whether or not, as new board members, if you received a packet from the city clerk's office that gave you, provided you with a booklet for guides for new board members, the different things that are also included, like the oaths of office. Did you get a packet like that from city clerk? Because you should have. All new board members should have gotten a packet that pretty much gives the overview of the duties and responsibilities of the board.
I did receive.
Yes, and that's, yes, I did. What I'm talking about a little more broader.
Okay.
Such, yeah, just more broader on topics that could come up. Not that you have to weigh in on it or tell me your thoughts or try to persuade me in some way, but just the point is, we just spoke about, hey, we have all this information that hasn't quite been archived. So you have tacit knowledge that I don't. So you're going to connect the dots quicker. You're going to have a lot to contribute, much more than me. It's going to take me a bit, right? It's a bell curve. So I'm just saying, whatever, I'll take documentation, point me in the right direction. One of the things I will do is go to the website. Maybe that'll help in some direction. But that's all. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Steffi. Greg Martin, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, quick comment. So we used to have those, I think many moons ago, we had those introductory things at the McGuire Hill Pub down on Andrews Avenue after the face-to-face meetings. Does anybody, Carl, do we have a schedule on when we can start having these meetings face-to-face as opposed to Zoom?
I do not. I'm not aware of when this transition will take place.
Okay.
What if we're all vaccinated? Would that help?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Charlie.
I said, would it be helpful if we were all vaccinated that we could actually get together as a group? Would that make a difference?
Was that a question to me?
No, at this point,
that was just a comment. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, at some point in time, the city council will start to meet again in person, I'm sure, and that'll be the lead for us, right? I mean, I think DeSantis has been kind of pushing that, but yeah, no, I would love the opportunity to meet you guys and say that hello. I'm within that. So just hoping that happens sooner rather than later.
That would be nice. It was spirited to have these in person, and I didn't have to look for yellow hands on the screen. Communications to the commission. That's next on our. Oh, wait, I've got another hand. Let me go back. Carrie, I've got a hand by you.
Communication to the commission. Is there an appetite for a communication to the commission on the one-stop shop? I get it's a little bit of a political football, but we are a parks board. Many people in this community, especially those of us that live in the area near there, really feel like it was kind of promised that it would be a park, especially people in Flagler Village, like that there was a little bit of a commitment made that it would be a park. And I think, when you look at the density of Flagler Village and the number of parks there, again, like I was saying earlier, Holiday is close, but it's a walk across Federal, which is, not a bit of a mental block. You got Sistrunk, which is becoming a nice park. There's been some nice upgrades to it. And you got Peter Feldman, but still for the tens of thousands of people that live in that area, I really think that space should be a park. Whatever Revolution Live wants to build, there's plenty of places where there's plenty of non-park spaces they could lease or rent or buy to build. So I would be in favor of doing a communication to the commission in favor of honoring the, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, was the 2010 or 2016 master plan that designated that as a park.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Carrie, because I know years ago this came up in discussion. And I'm not sure, Leona, if you can look this up, but I believe we had sent a communication to the commission. It must have been 4 or 5 years ago regarding one-stop shop, and encouraging the city to, if I'm not mistaken, honor the local residents' requests or concerns regarding it, and hearing them out, because there was a vocal group in I think it was called Our Next Park or something like that was the group, if I'm not mistaken.
That's exactly
And,
what it was called.
I know that we had written a communication to the commission back then. I would love to see if we could dig that up again and look at it, and if nothing else, re-remind the commission of the history of this, and or something of that nature. But I'm all willing to listen out any discussion on communication to the commission regarding this, because it was a very hot topic with the community at the time. And as we're looking to buy more parkland and park space, we have a bond that's supposed to be moving some things forward. There was speculation in the master plan regarding it. And at one point there was even discussion about the city's charter changing the language of how the city could change land from park space to whatever space designations, etc. This came to the board in many, many aspects over the years. So I'm all ears for it.
Was there an argument to not turn it into a park? I mean,
yeah, the owner of Revolution Live came forward with an unsolicited bid to build a performance cultural center there. There would still, part of the parcel would still be a park, but as Caleb was saying, the Our Next Park people group from, which was largely Flagler Village, but other people as well, put a lot of time and effort into that. It was put into the downtown master plan as a park, but the deal with the unsolicited bid is it's not like the city went out and said, oh, what do we want to build here? A private developer came in and said, hey, I want to offer you money to sell me that and let me build something there. So the
city does own it currently, and they just haven't figured out what to do with it.
Well, they did figure out what to do. The downtown master plan says it's going to be a park. Someone's now just waving a ton of money in their face to do something different with it. And I think that we should remind them. I mean, they know. I mean, there's no reminding them. They know. But I think that we should.
I agree. I think we should get an update on it. Let's send a communication.
If I could just for a second here. This is, as Caleb said, a very hot topic. It was a huge topic at the board meeting for the Council of Fort Lauderdale Civic Associations this week. Coral Ridge, I think we spent about 45 minutes talking about the one-stop shop, and that's not even our neighborhood. So I know that the Flagler Village, Progresso, and I think the downtown civic associations are kind of getting together on this, because this unsolicited bid, the city doesn't have to take it. They can just say no, thank you, and the land can still just sit there and do what it's doing now, which is nothing. The danger is nobody has seen the plans. There's not a drawing that a person has seen with this unsolicited bid. There's no one, not the commission, not Flagler Village, not the council. Nobody has seen whatever this is. It could be anything from an indoor 5,000 seat venue to, I don't know, a shell. So it's a very hot topic, and I think we do need to communicate to the commission, but I think it's going to be kicked around a lot. I know Lauterbloom is coming to the council's next general board member meeting, and questions, he's already received questions from the council to answer regarding the one-stop shop. So it's a huge, hot topic, and I think we should pay attention to it, but I think we need to be updated on it before we say anything at this point.
So Mary, I agree not to get too far ahead. And one of the questions asked before was what was their plan with it, and where did it go? At one point, I remember it was discussed that when the wave came through, the wave might be utilizing the space. There was another point where they were discussing potentially a spot for replacing City Hall. There's been multiple discussions that have come through just the Parks Board as to what this site may or may not be used for at different points. But as Mary said, as many have said, it's always remained vacant. And again, this unsolicited proposal is obviously concerning, but as a board, not knowing what the actual proposal is, maybe our best recommendation for communication is just reminding the commission that we had made recommendations in the past that it be utilized as park space, and that the city should at least reach out to this advisory board and or other civic boards before making any sudden decisions on what they may or may not do with this unsolicited bid that nobody has seen. But again, I'm entertaining to any discussion regarding this.
We may not know specifically what they're going to build, but we know it is not going to be a public park. So, I mean, what was being publicly reported is that, you know, the site is 3.5 acres, that the facility, the cultural musical facility would be 1.5 acres, and then the remaining 2 acres would be a park. I don't know if that would be a privately managed park that's open to the public, but still private property, or if it would be actually, that would be a public park. I'm not really sure. But we do know that we're talking about building out some of the last remaining green space in the downtown Fort Lauderdale area. So like if you were, you know, a radical like Brucey and I, then like I don't need to know what they want to build there. I know that that's green space and could be a park. And if they want to build something, there's tons of hardscape that's not publicly owned that they can build something. So for me, I don't really care what they're planning on building there. They shouldn't build there. It should be 3.5 acres of green nature park, as far as I'm concerned. Because, I mean, how much would we have a $30 million budget to buy new land. How much would it cost for us to buy a 3.5 acre piece of property in downtown Fort Lauderdale for a public park, which desperately, you know, that's an area that needs it, as we've talked about. And I'd be interested to see from Collier if that isn't how orange that space is on their map. Maybe they don't consider it that in need of a park because there's Peter Feldman and Sistrunk, but those are pretty small parks and that's a pretty dense area.
Any more discussion from other board members of concern or related to this potential communication to the commission?
So do we want to make a motion to request the status of the park, or what's the game plan here?
I think we know the status right now is that there's a waiting period that they have to go through for this unsolicited proposal. I'm looking for the communication piece. Of course, I won't find it until after we're done tonight. But I mean, that's they're waiting on this bid to run out. I think there's a period of time they have to.
So what should we communicate? Are we going to communicate or are we not going to communicate? Like, what's the question here that we want to pose?
Hey, does anybody know what department of the city actually controls the land now? Is it just part of facilities? Was it public? I mean, at one point in time, Parks and Rec office was there before it was a one-stop shop, to be honest.
The
Okay?
city manager controls the property right now.
So it's okay. So it's just in the, it's okay. All right.
Well, it doesn't sound like there's an appetite for any sort of like definitive communication. So since I was the one that brought it up, you know, I was envisioning like a definitive communication of you should reject the unsolicited bid and you should turn that into a public park because we desperately need public parks, particularly in that very dense part of the city. But absent something definitive, you know, since I'm the one that brought it up, I'll kind of withdraw it until I think everyone
Gary,
seems
wait a
to
minute
want.
now.
Okay.
Gary, I mean, why don't you just put it out there and see if you get any check-ins and see if anybody else wants to join you.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I think there may be a different statement, Carrie. I mean, I think once again, you made the point. Look, we have been tasked with finding new parklands in the city as part of this bond. And here we have a piece that we already own. And I think if nothing else, we don't want to make a decision without our participation. So maybe
Yes.
a reminder of kind of what our task is, and to encourage them not to make a decision on this prior to fully vetting it through the Parks Board. I'm making stuff up.
It's not a park right now, so I don't see how we can do that. It's just I agree. I get where you're going to, but because we've really been going round and round with this piece of property. Right now, it is not a park. I think we can make a recommendation that we want it to be a park, but
Yeah, so let me make that motion and let me just see if I can get enough votes. I've never actually had any motion I made pass. Normally it's just Brucey and I. So honestly, if I even get like 3 or 4 votes, this would be like a big win for me.
well, do it because
Here we
I'm
go.
really hungry.
Let's hear your motion, though. How do you want it to state to Leona that she can write it out, that we can then vote on it?
Okay, so I make a motion that we make a communication to the city that the City of Fort Lauderdale Parks and Recreation Beaches Advisory Board recommends that the city commit to honoring the downtown master plan and turning the one-stop shop into a public park.
I second the motion.
I second.
Okay, I had a lot of seconds. Who seconded that?
I second.
Alex and myself.
Everybody
Sorry.
seconded. It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
I think I heard
Karen,
Steffi, or was it Alex?
Yes, Steffi, Alex may have beat me.
Okay.
So whatever you want to do.
Okay, Alex, I'll put you as second.
Copy that.
Okay, do we have any
What's the vote?
discussion on it, or do we want to just make a vote on it? Because it sounds like there's a tremendous amount of support potentially for this.
I think we just vote on it.
Could you read it one more time,
agree.
Leona? By the way, Carrie, you did a really good job.
Yeah, Carrie has.
So read it again, please.
Carrie, you can repeat it.
Oh, sure. The City of Fort Lauderdale Parks and Recreation Beaches Advisory Board recommends that the city honor the downtown master plan and turn the one-stop shop property into a public park.
Great.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, I can go to the roll call.
Please.
Alex Colazzo,
Yay.
Brucey Cummins,
It's a shame she's not here tonight.
Caleb Gunter,
I'm in favor.
Carrie Villeneuve,
Yes.
Charlie Lykoff,
Yes, and Carrie, this may be the one.
Darren Heitner,
Yes.
Deborah Rosenbaum,
Yes, congratulations, Carrie.
Gail Butler,
Woohoo!
Yes, yes, I love it.
Greg Martin,
We'd be going to McGuire's Hill now, Carrie, but it's gone too. So, yes.
Joanne Smith,
Low battery.
Mariana Seiler,
Yes.
Mary Pelican,
Yes, Carrie.
Robert Payne, Mr. Robert Payne, you're on mute. Mr. Robert Payne?
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
No.
Steffi Pascal
Yes, cheers, Carrie.
and Tangerine Moore.
Yes.
Yay, Carrie.
Motion carries.
Oh, Robert
Good to the wave.
robbed me of unanimity.
Well, first of all, I didn't understand. One stop, where is that located? The one stop.
It's right. It's just east of Broward Boulevard. It used to be. It used to be where
No,
like
north
the
of it.
old City Hall. Well, oh, I'm sorry, I said east. Yeah, just north
Old
of
City
Broward.
Hall?
No,
Yeah, the old City Hall. Yeah, old City Hall.
Bob,
You
it's
wanna
where
turn
old
that
Parks
into
and Bob, it's where Parks and Rec was before they moved it by police station, back when you and I were working there.
Okay, you want to turn that into a park?
Yeah.
That sounds good to me. I didn't understand I didn't know what you're talking about. Now I
There it
understand.
is.
It's just sitting there, nothing happening on it. So why not?
Wait a minute. Unanimous vote.
Woo!
So
Drake's
Mr.
on me at
Page-
McGuire's Hill. Too bad it's not
Mr.
there
Page, for
anymore.
record purposes, you're changing your vote to yes?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carried.
Yay! Excellent. Hey, Leona, will the communication to the city reflect that it was unanimous?
Yes, I always do when it is. When it's not, I have to
Excellent.
put who said yes and who said no.
Excellent. And did I say the name of our board correctly? I kind of stuttered. Didn't
Yes,
I?
you did.
All right, great.
Carrie, while you're on a hot streak, you want to do any more communicating to the commission?
No, I move we adjourn.
Yes.
Go on a high note.
Yay.
Yes. Yay.
Unanimous.
That's unanimous
I second
too.
that motion.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks again, guys.
Bye. Bye. Bye.